Hi, everyone. This is Jingsong Zhao, or JC, from Shibumi. Welcome to our webinar today, Transform Your PMO into a Strategy Realization Office to better help your organization achieve its strategic goals. Welcome. I hope your day is off to a good start. And let me just go over a few housekeeping items before we jump into the content. First, this webinar is being recorded, and everybody who signed up, you will receive the recording via email to get the on-demand link. And we do want to make sure that you're getting value out of this. So as you're listening, think about what questions you have for us. We want to have a live Q&A and answer questions and have a conversation with you towards the end. So there is time for that as well. And I want to welcome you, and I want to turn it over to Mark to introduce himself.
Finding the mute button. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar. Excited to have you here. JC and I will be doing a joint webinar today. So she's going to take it for the first couple of slides, and then I'll pick it up. But for all of those in the audience, this is Mark DiGirolamo speaking. I'm one of the co-founders of the company and the Chief Customer Officer, and excited to be sharing the stage today with JC.
Thanks, Mark. So you're here today, you're probably here today because you want your PMO or EPMO to be highly effective in leading and supporting your company as it's going through a period of transformation or rapid growth. Some of you may be fairly new to your company, and you might have been hired recently because your company is going through some sort of transformation. And the executives there have realized that, in order to reach the company's goals, you want to do things differently than before, right? It means that people need to adopt new mindsets, processes, and tools. And, you may be coming into your organization with a lot of prior experience, but the challenge you might be having is not enough people in your organization, they really understand what it means to operate with a strategic portfolio mindset, what it means to focus on strategy realization. So you're looking for some ideas on how to lead and guide people, right? To adopt some new mindset, process, and capabilities. So in the next 50 minutes or so that we're going to be together, our intention is to give you some actionable ideas on how you can effectively drive some change and guide your organization on this journey. We're going to share with you what our most successful customers at Shibumi are doing, the PMO leaders, that is. And Mark is also going to give you a demo of Shibumi so you can see a little bit of how our product can support PMOs and everyone else you support in delivering more value to your organization. So that's what we'll do together. Kind of the first thing, we want to highlight is that, when organizations are trying to, drive some sort of change, whether it's, rapid growth, whether it's trying to, take a lot of costs out of the business, whether it's, trying to really pivot itself into sustainability and set targets there, or it's trying to use, disruptive technologies to innovate. All of it requires, our sort of PMO, right? So what we're saying here is, there's kind of there is really sort of a lot of PMOs, right? They are shifting their focus areas, and they are, they're calling themselves strategy realization offices now, or enterprise project management offices now, because they want to focus on a different set of responsibilities. Because, instead of, just looking at projects, which traditional project management offices, they are still incredibly valuable. They do great work, right? But since the organization is trying to change their EPMOs and strategy realization offices, right? They want to focus more on not just looking at projects in isolation and the cost and the efficiency, but rather how do projects add value in the overall organization structure? what are the benefits to the organization, right? What's the long-term benefits and ROI? Are projects creating value? Are they meeting the objectives that we really want to advance, right? We want to use data to make those decisions, right? And with that lens of value, it means that we can also figure out, are there projects that aren't delivering enough value that we should cut? If you're trying to get more support and broad-based support for, adopting this change in your organization, we think it's important that you have this, we think it's important that you can kind of articulate, right? Here is what we're focusing on, and here is how it may be different from before. Kind of one of the things, right, that's really powerful to help your organization understand where it's trying to go is to work with senior leadership and actually craft a vision, right, of where your organization is trying to go. Specifically define what it means to have a strategic portfolio mindset at your organization. How will your organization behave and make decisions differently than before? What you're seeing here is actually a SPM definition statement from one of our customers at Shibumi. This was created by the Strategy Realization Office. Take a moment to read this and just kind of see what jumped out at you. If there's anything you like about what they put together, if there's anything that you agree with, if there's anything that you want to use kind of maybe in your statement as well. What I personally really like about what's developed here is that they are saying that they can say and will say, no, we're not yet to choices, that they show a willingness to be intentional and deliberate about making decisions, and they're really using demonstrating the importance of identifying and using benefit and costs when making each investment choice. Those are some of the things that I like. So the next thing this organization they really did is they actually decided where, as a strategy realization office, they will focus. What are they going to prioritize? They're saying, hey, here is how we're going to deliver value to the organization. We're going to give them these capabilities. So for them, they're focusing on providing transparency of the portfolio, of the full portfolio to their decision makers and stakeholders. They really want to provide the data leaders need to make value-based prioritization decisions. They want to make sure that the different program teams and project teams and leadership as well understand dependencies across the projects and programs, and they're appropriately managing those dependencies. And finally, right, one of their leadership sort of top-down mandates is we got to create a more balanced portfolio, right? We got to think about long-term versus short-term, strategic and tactical, maintaining the business versus transforming the business. And they want to make sure their programs are tagged appropriately so that they can analyze a portfolio through all of these different lenses. We really encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to put pen to paper, right? And kind of define what your priorities are so that you can share them to gain support. But also, when you define your priorities, it becomes much easier then to figure out what are some new processes you want to build into your operating rhythm. And further, where are you challenged today? Where might you have some capability gaps that keep you from delivering on these priorities? So that naturally leads us to kind of our next step, right? Is, once you have your key priorities for your SRO's focus areas, think about where you might have pain points or gaps. What you're seeing here are just some challenges experienced by PMOs, that we hear, right? These are some of the key reasons people come to Shibumi in the first place, right? in terms of just even understanding what is in my current portfolio as a company. What we hear a lot is that, different departments and teams are using different data sets and systems to manage their own programs and projects, and they don't have standardized ways of reporting things. So it's very difficult to see the portfolio as a whole. And with that, right, for a lot of organizations, they're kind of new to this concept of being very, very clear about identifying the business benefits of their programs and projects upfront and tracking them through to delivery. And so using data on the benefit and cost to prioritize and decide when to start or stop programs and projects, that could be a very difficult thing, especially where to stop things, for instance. And then just ensuring that we have enough resources to deliver, to deliver on our goals, especially and stacking the projects and sequencing the projects to do so appropriately. Here at Shibumi, that when we talk about improving collaboration and communication, we don't just mean in general, improving communication and collaboration, but really specifically, right, if you're trying to reach big goals and you have these complex projects with moving pieces, you really need to understand the dependencies between them and where teams need to combine efforts and where teams are dependent on one another. Oftentimes, this information may be clear at the lower project levels, but it's not clear to the SRO. It's not clear to senior leaders. So we don't know when, things have gone south and when to step in and intervene. Reporting and measuring value, right? We're talking about value here, not just project completions, right? If you haven't sort of planned up front, right, and it can be very difficult to then demonstrate that there is strategic alignment between projects that are already in flight or completed and business priorities, and then measuring how those projects and programs are performing against the targeted outcomes, and being able to do so through different lenses, right? The same lenses that you kind of have defined for your portfolio. That's another challenge. Now, all these 4 challenge areas, right? I think they would be mitigated significantly if people, across your organization would adopt the same system, right, to track their stuff. But then you would have the central system and central reporting, but it's going to be pretty challenging often to get people to adopt a new tool, right? They're going to be wondering, what's in it for me? Why should I be doing this? Which we will talk about how you can mitigate that challenge in a moment on this webinar. But the major point here is these challenges, right? They really become acute if you're really trying to focus on the strategy realization piece, if you're trying to be an SRO instead of a PMO. With that, I wanted to then talk about a little bit about why, strategic portfolio management software is built and how it benefits you and everybody on this call. And this is kind of the whole reason Shibumi was founded as a company back in 2011, is that we saw, many organizations that have set really major goals trying to do transformation. They weren't able to succeed fully. They weren't able to deliver on all their key objectives because things were falling apart, throughout that process, right? As people are making decisions on kind of what to invest in, as people are trying to move projects along, as people are making sure there's misalignment between sort of what people think what projects should be done versus what's actually going to meet the key business outcomes. So Shibumi really is kind of meant to help you, be better at these kind of 4 value pillars. With that, I'm going to turn it to Mark to talk a little bit more about Shibumi and show you a demo.
Great, thanks, JC. We're going to do a quick screen swap here. I am going to share my screen so we can do the demo. 1 second here. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about before we get into the demo is our approach. And just to be clear for everyone, these acronyms, SRO and SPM, they're really tightly coupled together. With the Strategy Realization Office being the organization internally in a company, that is tasked to manage all of these strategic programs and make sure that they're delivering the business benefits that the company is really looking for. And then the SPM software being the key enabler to that SRO, to that Strategy Realization Office. And that's what we'll take a look at in a second. Before we do that, though, as with any large piece of software, any enterprise software, it's not just the software that we talk about. There is a whole approach around implementation of that software, and really a framework and a methodology to implement it, to make sure that you're getting really the most value you can out of the solution itself. And that's really what we're looking at here on this screen. This is the beginning of what we call our value delivery framework at Shibumi. So of course, the software is a key enabler to that value delivery framework, but this is the cycle that we use to and that all of our customers implement time and time again. And as JC was mentioning in the beginning, everything always starts out with the outcomes. The first step in the delivery framework is defining where you want to go. And we'll see this in the software itself in a second here. But defining those outcomes and then really capturing measures around each one of them to know if, in fact, you've hit the outcome or you haven't. But that really kicks off this life cycle. So if that's where we want to go, how are we going to get there? Well, you need to come up with ideas. You need to come up with, in our language, initiatives that you're going to execute on to ensure that you're going to deliver the outcomes back to the business that were expected. But then, of course, how do you know? How do you know this is a good idea versus another one? Well, we have to define a business case for it, right? We have to start to quantify the business benefits that we expect from this idea as opposed to another one. And there's going to be costs associated with it. So all of this forms an ROI for each one of your ideas. With that level of detail, that gives decision makers really a valuable data-driven insight into how to rank, prioritize, make decisions on where they want to invest. And then finally, that moves us into monitor and manage. So now you're executing, all right? You're executing an initiative. You're doing what is required to achieve those benefits that have been defined. Once you're done with that, well, you need to measure, right? You need to validate that original business case that you captured is in fact what you're realizing as an organization. And then continue on. Right, we go into this life cycle that never ends. As part of all of this, though, because the SRO is so broad within the organization, we're trying to really execute on the most strategic objectives of the business. It touches all parts of the organization. And from a software and a solution perspective, integration becomes critically important. A lot of the information that Shibumi and the SPM solution needs is most commonly being captured somewhere else for in certain places. So there are a ton of integrations that we provide to automate this whole part. This is just a small snapshot. There are over 1,400 integrations that we make available. But it's also important to keep in mind that these integrations all fall and align into that life cycle. Everything aligns to that life cycle around what we do. And as I said before, that value delivery framework, it's really critical to how we implement and how the software operates internally for our customers. So with that, let's slide over the screen here, and I wanted to do just a brief demonstration on how this all comes to be within the solution itself. So here we are in a fictitious company. This is a strategic portfolio that this organization is managing. And if you look at the top here, that value delivery framework, that life cycle from outcome to benefit realization is here. It's here as well. So everything that we do kind of aligns to those life cycle stages. And as we said, the first step is to define those outcomes. What are the objectives you want to achieve, and how are you measuring yourself against each one of them? This is always, step number one with us, where we define a set of objectives. You can see this view here. Typically, these objectives, somewhat follow an org structure in a company. So you have kind of your C-level objectives that they're focused on, and then those break down into the different business units and the organizations and departments and teams, and you can get as detailed as you need within this structure. But within each one of those objectives, we also want to measure how are we doing. So KPIs are critically important here. If we want to achieve this goal of achieving carbon neutrality in FY23, how do we know that we've actually done it? That's where the KPI comes into play. So these are the measures we're using to really know if we have achieved that goal or not. These measures, this is already a point of integration that often comes in. The values, the actual numbers for these things like CO2 savings could be captured in another system. So we integrate and pull the data. What we're doing in Shibumi, though, is really defining our targets. Where do we want to be over time around this KPI that we're tracking? And then we can figure out where the actual numbers are that we'll compare our performance against. The other point I want to make here, where we're looking at a particular objective, is what are we doing internally in the company to ensure that we're going to achieve this objective? What are all of the initiatives that we're considering or that we're executing on to make sure that we're becoming carbon neutral? Well, it's these four. All right, and we can see them. I can drill into them. I can get all the details about them. The key here, though, is that there is alignment. And this is critically important, that the work that we're doing or considering to do in the business is aligned to the direction that we want to take the organization in. Without this, you can't make as an effective decision on which ones to choose and which ones not to. So navigating back up to the top. Coming back to that idea, that concept of an idea, right? We've filled up our backlog, so to speak, of all of these great ideas that we can execute on that will achieve our outcomes. But inevitably, some of them are better than others, right? Some of them have higher scores, if that's how we want to measure performance. Some of them have a better ROI, an estimated annual benefit. Some, and we'll look at this in later steps, we just simply can't do because we don't have enough resources to execute on it. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can start to make some decisions on which ones to move forward with or which ones not to. But this is that idea step, right? We're just getting some ideas in the backlog. It's almost a triage where we're looking at them and deciding, do we want to put a little bit more time and effort into defining this idea and building it out in more detail. If I wanted to, I could say, yeah, this one looks pretty good. Approve it, save it, and then it moves off into the next stage within that life cycle. That next stage is planning. So for the ideas that look promising, we really need more detail about them. That business case that we capture for each idea, we really have to tighten it up. We're probably working with other groups within the organization. Probably the finance team is getting involved to really validate that business case, those benefits and those costs are accurate. We're probably starting to identify some of the resources required. So who needs to get involved? All of this kind of contributes to the real business case we use to make an investment decision on what we want to move forward with or what not. All of these could be organized by programs. So maybe I just want to look at my cost transformation program. all of the ideas in planning phase there. Maybe things that are just waiting for approval, so that quickly limits it. And then maybe let's turn this one off. I don't know which ones. There's so many. Maybe I add some into different buckets, right? So maybe if I approve this set of ideas in bucket 1, it looks like we get about 1.2 in savings. Okay, interesting. How about all of the ideas in bucket 2? Okay, how about 3? So it allows you, don't like 3. It allows you to create kind of subsets of all of these ideas and kind of approve them in bulk. So you have a good idea of the expected benefit that you're going to provide back to the business. Once you make this decision, which again is a pretty big one because I am approving and funding an idea at this point, we move into this execution phase. And here again is a often points of integration. So you probably have a bunch of different products internally in the organization to execute a project. MS Project and Asana and Monday and Jira and Azure DevOps, and the list goes on. And we integrate to all of them to manage the details of the execution. But here is we're getting kind of rolled up aggregated information about the health, right, of each of our initiatives that we've moved forward with, invested in, and are executing against. And from here, I can start to drill in and look at a little more detail. I could do it right here. I could open up an initiative and see all the detail associated with it. Or I could simply drill down into an initiative and look at the detail this way. And so we're in execution. We know why we approved it, right? It has a cumulative net benefit of over 1.5 million. That looked great. That's why we decided to invest. If I look at strategic alignment, so going back to those objectives we started with, it's aligned to a bunch. So that's great. That's what we want to see. And now I can jump over to the financials. Where did that 1.5 come from? How do we know that? Or 1.6? Well, we know it because we've defined a set of benefits and costs, right? And so we see them all laid out here. These benefits and costs always, well, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time are realized over a timeline. So this ROI view that we see down here is showing how our benefits and costs build over time. So, you know, most commonly, initiatives are in the red, right? Initially, they're costing us money, but eventually they'll pop up into profitability, and that's where we're getting the true positive ROI of it. The other interesting thing here too is if I jump over to the work plan, we're executing on a series of activities related to this initiative. In this case, they're Jira epics or sprints or releases, you know, whatever the thing is, whatever the external system is, that's where we're managing the work that we have to do to receive the benefit. What we do additionally is connect individual benefits to that work. And so this is really important because in this case, in this example, what if something slips on the Jira side or a major milestone in MS Project slides out? Because we've defined a dependency between the activity that has to happen and the benefit that we get as a result of that, we can start to capture the business benefit and the business risk that a slipped activity will give us. And so if this thing slips out a month, well, that's $120,000 of missed benefit. And so with that information, you know, you might make some different decisions. Throw another person on there because we need to hit that epic or that release. This is a big deal and we have to deliver on it. So that's the work plan, and you can see, we capture quite a bit of detail there, and again, we align it to the business case. And the last thing I'll touch on here is the resources. So for all of the initiatives, there's different roles and people that you need involved. And you need to know that when you're making your decision around which initiatives to approve and which ones not to. Which ones can we realistically execute on? We have enough resources available to do it. The only reason we know that is because we've defined those resources here, and we've captured the requirements. We need a developer for 2 months full time. Okay, do we have any developers for 2 months full time? All right, this is how we know that. Okay, so this is the initiative. It's off and running and doing what it's supposed to do. If we come back all the way to the top, we'll jump over to benefit realization. Here's the end result of all of it. We've defined a ton of benefits within those initiatives. We've executed on those initiatives. We've probably connected those benefit drivers that we saw down at the initiative level, those benefit line items, to an external system, so we can actually get a feedback loop of real performance against them. And now in these views, we can start to see, have we actually achieved what we thought we would achieve? And this is the true benefit that you're delivering back to the business as a result of all the work that we walked through up to this point. So this is the net result. We have a bunch of different ways on top of this to communicate all of this great success and progress around the SRO to everybody else within the organization. So for instance, oftentimes there's a briefing deck that gets generated. This is probably, like a monthly briefing that you deliver to a set of stakeholders on how we're doing. Are we hitting the objectives we thought we would? Most of the time, that's a manually generated deck that takes quite a bit of effort to produce. And so in Shibumi, we've kind of automated that whole process. We have the data. The data is in our solution. So all of the slides that you see as I'm clicking through here are just looking at that data. And so this deck, essentially updates itself as we go through time. And so really what you have to do to prepare for one of those briefings is just to lock all of these slides. Because the other thing people don't like is to be taken by surprise, right? When they're in front of one of these briefings and somebody in a project, in an initiative changes value and all of a sudden your numbers are different. So you can lock these in time, create snapshots, and then this is what you brief the organization and the team on. You can flip it into present mode and off you go. You're delivering the monthly steerco back to the organization. Okay, so that is the demonstration that we wanted to touch on. Let's come back to the deck. The other thing I just wanted to call out too, I was going to say it before, is this whole space, this whole SPM software category. It is a defined and formal category. And in fact, Gartner has created a Magic Quadrant for it. There are other products in that Magic Quadrant along with us. None of them do it quite like we do or as good as we do, in my humble opinion. But I would encourage, really everybody to reach out to Gartner, ask them about it, and get some advice on an SPM product offering, and ask about us. We'd love it. Okay, so what we wanted to talk about a little bit at this point is some of the success that we've had with this approach, with the software that we just looked at, coupled with that value delivery framework around implementing all of this software, and where we've found success with just a couple of the customers that are using this. And I wanted to start with this one on the top left, an energy company. This is an energy company in the US. We've been working with them for 3 or 4 years now at this point. It's been a while. And I think this is a great example of kind of how to get started and how to scale. So this company originally reached out to us through this automation COE that they wanted to create. They have a lot of pressure to reduce costs and deliver kind of cheaper energy to their millions of customers. So they really need this to drive down costs through continuous improvement. One of the major ways that they were going to do that is through automation. And so they used our SPM offering to capture automation ideas and put them through that exact same process that we just walked through. And start to identify different savings and realize those savings. What they found is they had great success doing this. And this automation COE grew and grew and grew internally into the organization and really became a true SRO that was delivering more than just automation savings, but continuous improvement savings across the board in a lot of different areas internally in the organization. And they've really scaled it, not only in automation, but not kind of vertically in automation, but horizontally into a lot of different areas in the organization. And we'll touch on this in another slide in a second here, but it's a great example of how to get started. Start small. In this case, they did with automation, and everybody saw the value and the success that they were having, and it quickly grew and grew from there. JC, did you want to touch on one?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, another one too that started smaller, I think also with automation, but grew into kind of a very significant cost takeout program is this telco company that's been a customer of ours for, I think, 5 years now or so. They basically had this very ambitious goal to take out, I think it was like, at first it was $1 billion in cost. And because they wanted to use that cost savings to kind of invest into a new area of their business, right? Become more of a technology enabled company. And so they use Shibumi to basically track all their cost takeout initiatives and make sure that they were able to deliver those initiatives within certain time targets. And because they were able to just be very good at managing those initiatives and tracking how they're going, they were able to achieve their overall goal, right, in 3 years instead of 4. And this person who initially led this program, right, has actually been promoted because of their success. So basically, let's just say that, you have really defined kind of what you need from strategic portfolio management software. Let's say that you selected something, we hope it's Shibumi, but anything really. One of the next things, right, to get to value, you have to make sure that the right people are on board, that they're using this software, right? So you actually need to think about your user adoption plan. And, this is just a very small slice of what that is. And we'll have other sort of webinars on this topic in the future. But a couple of things, right, is important is like, as you're trying to implement new tools, it's important to identify and involve your key stakeholders early, right? Ideally for the executive sponsor, right? The executive who really cares about certain outcomes and getting to those on time, it's best to involve them very early and get them to, even contribute to like saying, here are the key capabilities I need, right? Usually it's certain dashboards, it's certain views, it's certain data points and KPIs, right? And getting their buy-in on whatever software you select, because with that executive, they have the authority and the credibility to, push it down, right, to other people to mandate its usage. That would be an ideal scenario. But, of course, you want to work on other people too, right? We often see that, when you adopt a new software, you start with a single department or business unit, because that's where there's a lot of high value projects or programs going on. Getting that department head or leader on board, right, is a key thing to do. And further, right, a lot of the success of the work involves appropriate resource planning and headcount planning and allocate in project planning. And that's the work of project managers. And you want to make sure that they are comfortable, right, with a tool, that they see value in it, that so you want to really make sure you think through these groups, what their specific concerns are, because different groups are going to care about different things. They're using the software in different ways, and you want to tailor your approach. And lastly, I'll just say that think about who is the strategic group to do a small scale pilot with, right? Who's the group that has a lot of pain right now? And they can start getting their projects and their data in there right away, because if they, you solve this problem with them, they become, they become really happy. They start sharing more broadly what they're doing with others to drive that adoption. And if you work with Shibumi as our customers, we actually have a value delivery team here, and they'll actually work in a very hands-on way with you if you need help in this area, and will help you come up with artifacts and messaging and guidance, right, to your stakeholders to help you drive that adoption that you need. With that, this wraps up the kind of presentation portion of this. Our goal here at Shabumi is to help you guys be rock stars and really effective leaders, right, at helping your organizations realize its strategy. And so please let us know if anything you heard today resonated with you, if there's anything you want to try or implement. Additionally, please let us know if there are additional things that would help you, right? What are other webinar topics? We love to get your feedback and input on there as well. We are available, Mark and I, if you want to talk to us about Shibumi, talk to us about your journey there. We're here to help. So with that, I want to open it up for Q&A.
And you can just type into that Q&A section. We'll see the question pop up. Looks like we got one about the value delivery framework, which I'm glad to see. So that's probably a topic for another webinar, because it is so valuable to us and our customers, and really the software is a major component of all of this. But having kind of a standard method and approach around how to get the most value out of it, and how to make sure that your companies are adopting this new approach. That's really what the value delivery framework is, and kind of stepping through that journey of implementation. More and more we rely on it because it makes the implementation so much smoother, and it really enables us to achieve our mission, which is to make you rock stars and to really execute against the company's most strategic objectives. So I think that is probably going to be an upcoming webinar.
It will be.
I think that would be
We're
really
planning
valuable.
on it.
Great. I think we'll leave it at that then. Thank you everybody so much for your time today. This is recorded. We're gonna follow up, and you'll have a recording of it as well. Thanks for your participation and taking the time to join us today. And we will see you at the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.